of Sports Talk with the Views from the 573 podcast. This week's show is sponsored by Anchor, the best way to make a podcast. You'll hear about them a little bit later on in the pod. You can find us and our other channel entertainment from the 573 on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also go to our YouTube channel, Podcast from the 573, where you can listen to the YouTube version of the show. Be sure, whichever platform you go to go subscribe, go follow us. So to keep up with all the latest action coming from us, I am one of your co-hosts, Ryan McDaniel. Joined alongside me today is week-long Raptors superfan Peter Lewis. Peter, how you doing?
It's been great. I'm slowly getting over Kawhi leaving us, but you know what? We have a championship, and it's all good. It's all good.
Oh, if you missed last week's show, you missed a treat right there. Oh, that was a disaster. But, yeah, we had our 100th show last week. It went really well. We're on episode 101 now. We're into the hundreds now, and that's going to be weird to think about. So, let's get right on moving into this week's show. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Of course, we started our NFL preview last week with the NFC North. We're moving into the NFC this week, starting off with that conference with the NFC North. We'll be talking all about those teams. We're also starting our college football preview today, everybody. Matt's least favorite sport, but he's glad he's not here to record this. He'll be back for the Pac-12 because it's Herm Edwards, because, yeah. But today, we're starting off with the ACC, and we'll continue this on until college football season rolls along until, I think, late August. The season's getting started pretty early this year.
Well, yeah, they had like a weird August 24th kickoff with Miami and Florida, and I think one other matchup. So they're pushing it early and earlier. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's really weird. But so yeah, we'll start our college football talk this week, and that'll roll along, as well as our NFL previews. We'll also talk a little bit about Ezekiel Elliott possibly holding out, talking about what that might mean, and talking about some of these big deals with running backs and like if he's worth it, stuff like that. But first, we start off on this week's show talking about the trade that happened. Of course, it happens a day after we record our 100th episode, after we talked about him a little bit. Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, basically a swap nonetheless. Houston, OKC. Houston gets Westbrook. OKC gets Chris Paul, as well as get a couple future first-round picks and a couple draft pick swaps as well. And so, here's the thing with Westbrook. So, of course, I mean, everybody knows Westbrook and Harden played back in 2012. But here's the thing, though. Both these players have changed so much since then. And sure, they may be good friends, and sure, they maybe played with each other. I don't necessarily know if it's a good fit because Westbrook, different player now than he was then somewhat. He can't really shoot the ball that much. We saw him take a dip in his three-point shooting percentage and his free throw percentage within the last couple years. And with Harden, he's just become an on-the-ball beast where like his usage rate is out of this world. And we really didn't see him have the ball that much in Oklahoma City. We saw him come off the bench as a sixth man behind Westbrook and behind Durant. And yeah, we saw that, and it's been years since we've seen that happen. And I don't know about the fit. It's really weird. And Westbrook's usage rate is out of this world too, don't get me wrong. But I'm struggling to see the fit here with Houston. I'm not going to argue. Westbrook is a better player than Chris Paul is. And the contract situation, Chris Paul's contract is bad, and so is Westbrook's. Westbrook's has a year longer left on his deal than CP3's. But I'm struggling to see the fit. Peter, you're hearing all this stuff. You're seeing all this stuff going on. What's your take on the Westbrook going to Houston trade, and if that makes him a contender or not?
It's kind of in the same vein as what you were just saying. I think my big thing is how Harden has also changed as well. We know, like you said, with Westbrook changing his game, Harden, what's the meme been the past couple of playoffs? Harden disappearing and all that. I think that these are two egos that, might be aware of each other, but they've certainly, in the couple years since they haven't, because when did Harden leave? What was it, like 2012, 2013?
Yeah, it was 2012. It was prior to that season, and we had the Harden trade. Yeah.
So yeah, we're coming up on 7 years of none of them together anymore. So that's going to be interesting. I still think, yeah, they'll be a fine team, of course. But in terms of the West, with, the Pelicans, Clippers, Lakers, yeah, I don't really know if they can really match that, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And especially if the Mavs coming up too. I mean, that might be a little sneak right back there.
Yeah, the Mavericks are a team that's up and coming. They got Porzingis back. Rest in peace,
Spurs will always have Pop, so I mean,
yeah.
He's always got to be a wild card.
Yeah, you got a couple pieces coming back with that team, and yeah, but yeah, I'm struggling to see the fit here. And here's the thing, though, we talk about how the fit doesn't work and how it could fit. Is Westbrook gonna have to be on the ball and Westbrook off the ball? Is Harden going to have to play off the ball now? I mean, because I think that's the only viable way Westbrook can work. Because Westbrook can't shoot. I mean, he can cut and whatever, and he can go grab offensive rebounds and still make plays and all this stuff. But Westbrook can't really shoot. He's lost that touch. And I don't know if you rather have the ball in Harden's hands or Westbrook's hands. I'm more inclined to have it in Harden's hands because we see what he can do. But I definitely think having a guy like Westbrook that still has a crazy, insane amount of energy still left in him, more so in CP3, because with CP3, even though he's a better shooter, you've kind of seen him lose a step. And,
yeah,
I mean, and the contract situation doesn't help here because this contract is absurd. And here's the thing with the trade, too. The 2 future first-round picks and the 2 pick swaps, Who is Houston outbidding? And be honest, nobody's going to try to bid for Chris Paul very heavily. I know Miami has been rumored to be interested, but I mean, I know they got Jimmy Butler, but I don't know. Chris Paul, that's a terrible contract. And I think the only way you do that if you're Oklahoma City, and it's looking like they might actually keep Chris Paul, is that if Miami just says, here, take a couple of our bad contracts, take an expiring or two, give us one of our picks back, and then we have a deal. But so I think he's staying at Oklahoma City for the foreseeable future. That may happen around. That may not happen around February. He may be dealt. But with Houston, I mean, listen, Westbrook again, better player than Chris Paul is. And he's still one of the top 25 best players in the league. No question about it. Westbrook is a difference maker. And yeah, we mentioned the shooting, but he's going to bring so much more to that team. And here's the thing with Westbrook as well. That team has got shooters on it. That Houston team does. Harden, if you decide to play him off the ball, he can shoot. We know that. You got PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. You're bringing Gerald Green back. Got a couple other pieces there, Austin Rivers. So you do got some pieces there where, if you spread the floor out, and we've seen that with Westbrook, how that plays out. Westbrook, when he has shooters around him, is dangerous. Westbrook's a good passer. There's a reason why he's averaged a triple-double the last couple of years. And that's because he's getting a crazy amount of assists. He's throwing it to open teammates, whether it's on lobs or whether it's on open threes. It's just, I'm still struggling to see the fit here. I still think I am, all the way up until the season. And I think, Peter, we'll definitely know whether this works within the first couple months of the season.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's guaranteed. I mean, maybe even earlier, to be honest. I just don't see these two meshing as of now. And especially with how the Rockets organization has been. Yeah, I don't really know if they have the people there that can, manage these two together.
Yeah, and we know Westbrook and Harden are friends, and I don't know if CP3 or Harden ever really were because of the disputes they got into and arguing about their games and what they should be doing instead of this and that and all this stuff. And another thing that's crazy to me is just to see the reaction around the league with this trade. Of course, it's very, I can't find the word right now, but it's, man, I wish I could think of the word, but Westbrook getting traded, that's very he's polarizing, and this trade was very polarizing because you got two of the most polarizing point guards in our league today. And I think that fits because Westbrook is probably the most polarizing of the two. But here's the thing with Chris Paul and the reaction around him getting traded. People were laughing at this because, of course, Chris Paul, he's a union president, and one of the things that he kind of worked behind the scenes as union president was trying to get this to where, like, you have the super maxes, and that's where we get that. And so some of the players in the league laughed when he got traded to the Thunder, who are obviously, they're rebuilding now. They got young pieces, they got draft picks. And yeah, so this trade was very polarizing. Of course, that happens the day after we briefly talked about it on the show last week. But I struggle to see the fit in Houston. That's my reaction to that side of the trade. And with OKC, if you keep Chris Paul and maybe you can flip him later on to maybe take on a couple bad expirings, I guess that's fine. But with OKC, I think the thing here is with the rebuild, and now you add more picks to your stockpile of the bunch of picks that you've gotten from the Clippers. And it's like a crazy amount. So they've added 7 additional first-round picks lined up through 2026 via these deals that for Chris Paul and for Paul George, which is insane. Oklahoma City has a lot of flexibility for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But this trade was crazy. I'm like you, Houston. There's a bunch of teams up at the top, like the Clippers. They're gonna be really good. You have the Lakers. I mentioned this last week. I like what the Lakers have done. Nothing has changed my opinion on that. And you got the Jazz up there that are looking very good as well. And so it's very good. It's going to be very tough for Houston, but I'm intrigued to see what happens here. I think we're like everybody else. This thing, we're going to find out how this is going to work very, very soon. It's not going to be this type of thing where we're going to, like the Miami Heat situation with not Chris Paul, with Dwayne Wade, LeBron, and Chris Bosh. We're like, it took us a year to kind of figure out what they really were, and then they won their championship in the second year. I don't think it's going to be like that. We're going to find out soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's a Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook trade. So that's another big move that's happened in the NBA. Another big move that's already happened. We're not going to touch on this at all really much. Ben Simmons signing a 5-year extension, $170 million. I'll make the short case for this. I heard somebody mention this. I agree with this wholeheartedly. It's like the Andrew Wiggins Giannis extension. So one went one way and one won the MVP, the other went the other way, and one is considered not to enjoy basketball at all. So we'll find out very shortly here soon whether that went one way or the other way. And if you're Philadelphia, you hope it goes to the way of the MVP in the future. All right. So we're starting off with our college football preview with the ACC. And of course, your national title championship winner came out of the ACC with the Clemson Tigers, of course, led by now sophomore Trevor Lawrence, was freshman last year, and really burst onto the scene. Really lived up to a lot of the hype that was projected around him. So yeah, let's get on into the ACC. So Peter, I'm going to let you start off. What do you think about the ACC this year?
So I will start with saying for the foreseeable college football stuff, I'm using Phil Steele's college football preview. Definitely one of the best in the country. And he has the ACC as the best conference overall. Now, it's hard to disagree with that when you have Clemson.
Yeah.
And they're going to be good under Sweeney for a long time. We know that. However, when it comes to everybody else, you got Miami and Florida State, which we'll get into later. So there's your big three, which is a pretty good one to have. But then you start getting to, the wild cards, the Syracuses, the Virginia Techs, the Boston Colleges, the Louisvilles, all of that. Well, not Louisville. They've been bad ever since Lamar left. So, yeah, it's definitely a wild card conference because we know Clemson's probably going to win out and make it to the Final Four, most likely or not the national championship, especially with Trevor Simmons, because they have an offense coming here. A lot of their players are ranked on the first team ACC. Lawrence, Travis Etna, running back. You have two of their wide receivers, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, John Simpson, offensive lineman, along with Termaine Alcrum. So they have a lot to work with here. They're returning 8 offensive starters. So an offense last year that was already just destroying people left and right, they're going to be good again.
Yeah.
Defense was the biggest hit. They only have 4 coming back. And we talked about the pretty much how that whole defensive line was first round material right there. And I think the majority of them did go first round.
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, that's the biggest thing for Dabo Swinney to work with. But again, you always see Clemson at the top of recruiting in pretty much every category. So
and you mentioned recruiting.
It's hard to worry.
You mentioned recruiting. I'm looking at the rankings right now. So right now, looking at the rankings, they got the number 2 player in the country, who's a defensive tackle. They are leading for the number 1 player in the country, who's a strong side defensive end. And also, they got the number 7 player in the country, who's another defensive end as well. And so they're just loading up on the defensive line, but they're bringing some guys back on that defense. Don't get us wrong.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, defense is going to be the only thing they have to, like, really look at. But when you have a player like, Trevor Lawrence and the weapons he's going to have and an offensive line that can help him, Clemson's just as dangerous as it ever was. So, I mean, it's really hard to say too much about them. They're clearly the favorite. And again, with, our college previews, we're not going to do, like, we're not going to make, our rankings yet or where we think they're going to finish. But it goes without saying, especially when we get to the SEC, we know who's going to win it, more likely than not.
Yeah.
It's pretty much who's going to fill in the Orange Bowl and the Citrus Bowl. That's what we really have to look at after that.
Yeah. And so you mentioned a couple of the other so-called other big 3. So let's start off with Miami. So Miami, they don't they promoted Manny Diaz, the head coach now. Miami was a mess last year. They hired Dan Enos from Alabama to run the offense. And they also brought in Ohio State transfer quarterback Tate Martell to battle out N'Kosi Perry and redshirt freshman Jaron Williams. And that's gonna be a key point for the Hurricanes because it's been a real mess at quarterback for Miami the last couple seasons. And I know they were your pick last year to win the championship.
Yeah, that fell apart week 1 with freaking LSU and Ed Orgeron.
Are they going to win the championship this year?
I'm not going crazy. I will say this. Manny Diaz, yes, first-year coach, but he has been there the past 3 years when they've had some of the craziest defenses I think we've seen in Miami for a long, long time. It's definitely not the 2001 team by far, but they've been impressive, and they're very even, returning 6 on offense and defense. So there's a couple of interesting things to work with. Brevin Jordan, their tight end, is definitely one of the best in the nation. Jonathan Garvin, great defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Shaquille Quarterman, fantastic linebacker. I expect a lot of good things from him this season. So there's a lot of interest there. And again, they're in a different division compared to Clemson. They're in the Coastal, where Clemson's, of course, in the Atlantic, because that's how the ACC works for whatever reason. So, I mean, they're going to have to, worry about Virginia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, North Carolina, Duke, Georgia Tech. I still think they make a interesting run. I'm certainly not going to go crazy and say they're a national title contender. However, this is a Orange Bowl, Citrus Bowl type of team, I would say.
Huh.
They have enough. Now, that's the upside. The I think realistic pick is, middle of the road, maybe 9-3, 8-4 at worst. But I could see them being maybe 10-2. I think they can beat Florida.
Yeah.
They definitely will. They don't have Clemson during the regular season, so that helps. Florida State would be their only other really tough opponent, which we'll get to down the road here. But yeah, just can you survive the wild cardness of the Atlantic Coastal with Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Pittsburgh? I think that's the big thing, and I think they have enough recruiting. I think they were kind of respectable.
Yeah, I know they've lost a lot of recruits here within like this 2020 class and 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the reason was for that, but Miami, they are an interesting team, and Mandy is his first head coaching job. It also comes in his hometown. That's a big deal for him. So he's going to try his hardest. But the Miami fans, oh man, it's like the Tampa Bay Rays when it comes to them putting fans in their seats. It's crazy, but
the expectations are high again. Unfortunately, like they were kind of, figuring it out, especially after like 2005, from 2005 to about 2015 when they were just kind of middle of the road, just floundering the ACC.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, especially last year, I mean, I wasn't the only one who had them potentially being a national championship scenario. So those expectations of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, they reared their head again. So I don't know how they're going to work with that. So I think they might want to play toward the upside, because if they make an Orange Bowl or Citrus Bowl, that looks good on them, because they're not going to make the champion. They're not going to make the Final Four.
No.
Without a doubt.
They're not.
Clemson's going to murder them.
Yeah, without a doubt. Moving on to the next thing that you mentioned was part of the Big Three, Florida State. Florida State, my goodness, they had a rough year last year, Peter.
Yeah, the 33-year bowl game streak ended, which, first of all, about to say, if you were going to be asked who's the most consistent team of the past 4 decades, you have to say Florida State.
Yeah.
Because Alabama, they had some 3-9 years there. Clemson, of course, had a lot of bad years. Florida State, a lot of that under Bobby Bowden, and of course, what's his name in Texas A&M now? Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
Yep, Jimbo. They did a lot of really good things, and Willie Taggart took over, and in his first year, could have gone better.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely could have. I believe it was the first game last year. They were playing Bama. You had Francois go out in the first game. Am I thinking right? Am I thinking the right year?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay. So you have Francois there. You have high hopes for him, and then he gets hurt. He's out for the majority of the year, and then you just had a dumpster fire at a quarterback, not knowing who's going to be there, and you lose to. I know they lost to some inferior team that there's no way they should have lost to.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule. Well, they kind of beat who they should have. They just had a lot of blowout losses to, they lost to Florida 14-41, Notre Dame 13-42, Clemson 10-59. I mean, it was a rough ride. They do return a lot. It's 8 on both sides of the ball, so that's, I guess, good. I mean, they're definitely going to have that holding over them all season long, of course. But, especially coming in last year after the 2017 campaign kind of fell apart, where they, had the number 1 versus number 3 Alabama game, and just that was kind of the beginning of the end. Still made the Independence Bowl, where they just annihilated Southern Miss. I mean, there's pieces there, I would say. I just think it's kind of you gotta be realistic here.
Yeah, you have to. Like, Florida State's not going to be contending. If you're Florida State this year, you got to hope for 7-5, I think, or maybe 8-4 at the most.
I think upside is 9-3 as I go back to their schedule, because let's see, yeah, they have an easy L to Clemson, 100%. Yeah. Like I said with Miami, that's a wild card. Florida, it's the last game of the season. Could go either way, depending on how Florida plays this year.
They start the season against Boise State.
Yes, I mean, right there, we just identified 4 potential tough games, and them. I mean, is Virginia guaranteed? If Syracuse isn't guaranteed anymore, Boston College is a wild card. So, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong for Florida State. I think they're going to be one of the more improved teams by far, but it would not surprise me if we're back to, coming down the line, they're barely going to make a bowl game. Yeah. I think they get back to a bowl game for sure, because, I mean, outside of Syracuse and Clemson, the Atlantic, I mean, North Carolina State, they could do something. Boston College, maybe. Wake Forest, Louisville, probably not. So, I mean, there's pieces there for sure.
Yeah, and they need to shore up the offensive line, too, because that's what killed them last year. They finished 129th nationally in yards per carry. That's not good. And when you have the talent of Florida State, Florida is such a rich state as far as recruiting. And so Florida State, you're going to get some people. You're obviously going to get some people there and around the country as well, because people recognize Florida State. They recognize all that stuff. So I think there is upside. But you mentioned there's a lot of toss-up games in their schedule.
Yeah. And if you want to bring up offensive line, Phil Steele identified 4 of the top ACC teams. Of the 16 spots that you could have an offensive lineman in one of those 4, none of them are Florida State. So even on the 4th ACC team, Florida State can't find an offensive lineman. It's going to be tough. And
they're bringing back 4 of the 5 offensive linemen, too.
Yeah, they are ranked 6th overall in the ACC. It's just none of them stick out. So, I mean, they might be a cohesive unit per se, but nobody's going to really impress, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess the next big thing to kind of look at, Peter, we have somebody coming back. Mac Brown.
Yeah, what a situation he's coming back to.
He's now the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Oh, man. So he's coming back. He's been retired for a few years. He's coming back to North Carolina. And apparently he's recruiting pretty well, too. And he's got a lot of pretty decent recruits interested in coming there. And so, and they're in the Coastal Division. And I don't know, man. It's really tough. Is Mac Brown still a good coach in 2019?
See, that's the thing. He's going to get the recruits based off the name for this season.
Yeah.
However, because the past couple years have not been kind to them. Last year they were 2-9. The year before 3-9. 2016 they had an 8-5 campaign, and of course 15 was the weird 11-3 year. But even then, I mean, I just don't know what to expect with this team, to be honest with you. I'm almost expecting the worst case scenario. Because Mac Brown, as his career ended at Texas, I mean, we just saw some very, very poor football from Texas.
Yeah.
To the point where he had to put Charlie Strong in. And that was even worse. You kids remember Charlie Strong? He was fun.
Ask Louisville that. Oh, poor Charlie Strong. But yeah, and I'm taking a look at North Carolina's schedules, too. Starting off against South Carolina, and then you got Miami, and then you got to go at Wake Forest, and that's not a given either. Because Wake Forest has been a sneaky good team the last couple of years. And then you got Appalachian State,
which could be an easy L.
Yeah, Appalachian State is by no means a guarantee either. You got Clemson, that's an L. Georgia Tech.
I mean, worst case scenario, we just opened a universe where they're 0-5 to begin the season.
Oh well, yeah. Like I'm looking at somebody who's predicting their schedule within the first 5 games. They're 1-5 and they're 1-4. They're 1-4. So, and they don't get a bye date until October 12th. And now here's an interesting thing here with college football now is that we get 2 open dates. And that's an interesting aspect in which I'm intrigued to see how that plays out this year. Because, hey, weather can be a strange thing, Peter. Something could happen. And you might need to move a game.
Well, yeah, I mean, last year we had like 3 hurricanes hit the southern United States, and it just completely threw a lot of schedules into chaos here. I mean, they had to cancel games. That's why I think earlier one team was like only played 11 games because they couldn't figure out how to schedule the next one.
Yeah.
And for our good buddy Chase, wasn't Miami supposed to come to Arkansas State, and that never happened?
Yeah, that was supposed to happen.
Yep.
Oh, man. I feel bad for you, Jace. Oh.
Well, don't worry. Arkansas State got a lot of money out of it, so.
Hey, that's true. I mean, college football, that's a cash grab. I guess take a look at some of the other teams going around the ACC. So, we mentioned Virginia and Virginia Tech, the 2 Virginias. They're very intriguing, especially Virginia. They could be a sleeper team.
Yeah, they've had a couple interesting things the past couple of years. I mean, when you have a coach named Bronco Mendenhall, I mean, anything's possible. 2017, they definitely should have beaten Virginia Tech, but they just kind of got, they were undisciplined down the stretch last year. 8-5, they made it to the Belk Bowl, so where they beat South Carolina 28-0. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in Charlottesville, especially within the Coastal, where it could be anyone's game. Yeah, I can work with that.
Yeah.
And of course, with Virginia Tech, 6 offensive starters returning, 10 on defense. So that's a very interesting thing to look into. Because their offense last year was pretty solid for the most part. Defense, though, did allow a lot of points in a lot of games. Like, there were some close, 40, 42 games on that Virginia Tech schedule last year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a wild card. Justin Flute, I mean, you're taking over for Beamer. You're never going to live up to that. So
no, you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah, so about to say, I don't know what to expect from Virginia Tech just yet. I still think they're a contender in terms of, respectability, but I'm not going to go crazy. We go to Yinzer Cinderella with the Panthers. Pat Narduzzi comes back. 5 offensive starters returning, 6 on defense. Yeah, last year was weird.
Tell us more, Peter, about how it was weird.
Well, they won the ACC Coastal, so
yeah, that happened.
They had the honor of getting slapped around by Clemson in the ACC championship in front of national TV, so that was good.
Yeah, that's fun.
They were probably hoping, man, can we get Dan Marino back in here?
Can we get James Conner in here too?
But yeah, I mean, if there's a team that can make a stupid run again, it's going to be them. I mean, they can beat Virginia. They'll lose to Penn State, of course. I mean, that's guaranteed.
Nothing's a guarantee with Penn State, Peter.
Oh, no. Especially that first half last year. They do have the honor of take UCF at home, so good luck there.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, I think Pitt comes back to the earth real quick this year. Now I look more at the schedule. Yeah, that's a tough one. So I don't think we have to worry about Yinzer Cinderella again, folks.
No.
It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah. So we have a couple sleeper teams here. You mentioned Boston College, Syracuse. Syracuse surprised some people last year.
Syracuse I want to get more into because they were consistently like 3-9 and 4-8 for the last, felt like, decade. And then last year, just 10-3 out of absolutely nowhere.
Is Syracuse a football school now?
I guess so.
Oh man, I never thought I'd say.
That's what happens when Carmelo left.
Well, that's been for like 17 years now.
Yeah. But yeah, they have the best coach named Dino Babbers. What a name.
Great name.
And they're returning a lot on defense, which kind of helped them a lot last year. 7 of them to be exact. I mean, Clemson, they gave them a run, 23-27. And Clemson, it's home. They're just going right at the bat. September 14th at home. They're making homecoming immediately.
Yeah.
Good on them. Like, there are schools that don't schedule homecoming until like October. Not Syracuse. They won an upset immediately. So if you're Clemson, the only one that you have to like really look at is going to be Syracuse.
Yeah.
What a world we live in.
Oh man, I never thought we'd see this.
I think you said Boston College is another potential surprise.
Yeah.
Mr. Steve Adazio, what's better than a bunch of guys being dudes?
All-time quote right there.
Best find ever. Sports one, at least. They have a lot to do. They only have 3 defensive stars returning, so that's going to be a big thing to look at. But you know what? They've been low-key consistent. Not noticeable consistent, but enough to be 7-6 usually.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to work with here. But I'll say they're non-conference. I mean, they got Kansas, so that should be an easy win. They got Rutgers. Oh, they're gonna kill that poor school.
Oh, poor Rutgers.
Can't wait to get in the Big Ten. It's just gonna be a expletive show on Rutgers. But yeah, Boston College. You know what? I think it's another 6-7 year win. So nothing too bad there.
You mentioned Rutgers, Peter. That show's next week.
Oh, goody. I guess, looking at the rest of the ACC, North Carolina State, they're a wild card as usual. Wake Forest, as I go to the page here, yeah, they're on a stable, more stable track since 2016. So I think Dave Clawson has some stuff to work with. 7 on offense, 5 on defense coming back. Respectable enough schedule to make a lower bowl game,
Yeah.
which is good for recruiting. But I mean, Louisville, how did this happen?
How the mighty have fallen.
They went from like perennial like wild card team to just and they're bringing Scott Satterfield in his first year. They got 10 returning on defense, although that wasn't really. They gave 66 to Georgia Tech last year. I would rather just got a new defense out of the gate.
Oh man.
We almost forgot about Duke.
Oh man, what a world! Yeah, Duke. They lost the not deserving number 6th overall pick, and Daniel Jones. You can get that right out the gate. That's a little tease of the NFC East right there.
Oh, that's gonna be the fun show.
Oh man, Cal. Oh man, yeah. So yeah, Duke.
Oh, you know what? Georgia Tech was not as bad as I thought they were last year. 7-6. That's fine.
And also, Georgia Tech has got a new coach. Paul Johnson ain't there anymore.
That's right. So, boy, it's going to be fun with the ACC. Not, of course, with Clemson. They're going to win it for sure.
Are we not going to see the triple option in Georgia Tech?
Oh, that'd be sad.
Oh, man. I guess we'll find out in week 1.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, again, without picking, we know this is going to be a Clemson year, of course. I mean, that team is just so built.
It's stupid how good they are.
We didn't even talk about Xavier Thomas on the defensive line, Isaiah Simmons at linebacker.
Oh, man. Both great talents.
Yeah, that team's gonna they're gonna crush a lot of people. The only team that can do anything is Syracuse, and it's gonna be very early in the season where, let's be real, Syracuse is probably gonna have to get some stuff figured out here.
Yeah,
So I think that might be a good hope for Clemson.
Yeah. So I guess is that gonna wrap it up for the ACC?
Yeah, like I say, it gets more fun when you realize how much of a dumpster fire it's going to be past, number 1 and 2 in each division. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, it's the Clemson show. Miami and Florida State are wild cards in terms of maybe making a good run. And then after that, it's just who's going to fill up the remaining bowl games.
Yeah. So that was the ACC, everybody. This is the first preview of college football that we've done this year. Next week, as I mentioned, we got the Big Ten. So Peter's going to rant about his Penn State Nittany Lions next week. So get ready to listen to that. That's going to be crazy.
If you want to hear me yell about Indiana's quarterback situation for 10 minutes, that's the show for you.
So this is all the lead up to our college football final predictions, where we'll do what we did last year. We'll make our predictions about who's going to win the conferences, who's going to win the national title, and I'm assuming we'll make our week 1 picks as well, which we did last year. So hopefully we get a new king instead of Diva Matt Mormon this year. And we'll do all that on August 28th. So yeah, so that's the ACC. We got the Big Ten coming up next week. So yeah, everybody get ready for college football. That's coming up here really shortly. I'm still amazed it's coming up in late August.
Yeah, that's the big thing. 4 days after or before the 28th, you're going to have Miami and Florida, so we'll probably have to pick earlier than that, to be honest.
Yeah, we will. Oh man,
we'll save the independents and the non-power fives for that last week. Who cares?
Yeah, and plus a little school called SEMO.
Yeah,
who really cares? Fire Coach 2.
Do we have to really talk about SEMO? We don't go there anymore.
Well, I mean. It's still called from the views from the 573, and SEMO was technically in the 573 area. So
yeah, the 573 area code is huge, though. It's like half the state.
Oh, well, Peter, I think we'll end off this week of college football with this: fire Coach Tuke.
Oh yeah, I don't care that he made the playoffs. Fire him.
All right, so now we're moving on into another story that's become headliner here. Of course, we have the Melvin Gordon news about him potentially maybe sitting out. Well, another top flight running back is thinking of maybe holding out, Peter. Ezekiel Elliott.
I can't even say I'm surprised at that.
Me neither. And this situation in Dallas is you got to pay Dak. You've already paid DeMarcus Lawrence a huge amount of money. You don't know how much you're going to have to pay Dak. You might have to pay him in the upwards of over $20 million. And then you also got to pay Amari Cooper. And, man, it's tough. I mean, of course, Zeke, as great as he is, we know the story about running backs in the NFL. They don't have a long shelf life.
And especially with Zeke, I mean, he just keeps getting in off the field situations. I mean, he had of course, the suspension 2 years ago. That was, pretty much if you had him on your fantasy team, you had to have a lawyer present to, know if you could start him or not. And now he has this whole Vegas mishap where I think he's met with Goodell. So, I mean, God knows what comes out of that.
Yeah. Now, he's due to make a salary of about 3.8 this year. And next year, around $9 million next year. He could ultimately be looking, from Pro Football Talk on NBC Sports, he could be looking for at least $10 million per year. I think it may be more than that. He may be looking to be the top running back paid in the league. And I know we've seen what's happened with Todd Gurley, and I know it's two different situations because Zeke has been, for the most part, he's been stayed really healthy throughout his career. And Todd Gurley, right now, is very iffy right now looking at his outlook. But I don't know. So obviously you're going to have to pay Dak and you're going to have to pay Amari. Which one are you going to pay first, and which one's more important, Zeke or Dak?
I feel like Zeke's more important, to be completely honest with you. I still haven't seen anything out of Dak consistently that makes me think he is worth money. I think you still have to keep him, especially for Cooper.
Yeah.
But I don't think he can command a high salary like, the Rodgers or the Brady's of the world. I don't think he's there.
And he said he's not going to take a hometown discount.
No.
And, I guess, why should he? But I don't know. I feel like, they drafted a couple running backs this year in the draft. One that, I forget who they drafted. I know one was a running back for sure. Another was Tony Pollard. He was running back / wide receiver out of Memphis, so he could split out wide or whatever. But I think with running backs, you can find good running backs anywhere. No, maybe not as good as Zeke, but like good, serviceable running backs. And still, you got the offensive line there.
That's the big thing. I remember a couple of years ago when the Steelers had to put like D'Angelo Williams in when he was like 32. And he was still like just running amok because the offensive line just gave him all the holes he could ever want. Like that was a guy like putting up 20 points in fantasy for you.
Yeah, and
it was ridiculous. Like that's an offensive line that can handle anybody. So I think Zeke might realize it, especially after Connor. James Conner kind of showed the NFL, oh yeah, if your offensive line is fine, you can put anybody in there.
You really can. And you mentioned the James Conner situation. That really showed that could work. That you could throw in a guy that you drafted in the mid rounds, throw him behind a great offensive line, and he can go gangbusters on every team. It's just, I feel like Dak may be more important because Dak, even though he's not in the Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, that tier, but I definitely think he's above average, so you're gonna have to pay some money to him. You're gonna have to keep him. I don't know. It's gonna be tough to find another good quarterback out there, but we always know everybody's looking for quarterbacks. And especially we got the 2020 draft coming up next year. That's got a bunch of quarterbacks, but yeah, with Zeke, if he's holding out, if he's probably said that to a bunch of people, it's not surprising to me. It's not surprising to you. It's probably not surprising to a bunch of people. But I don't know if, given Zeke, great running back, and of course he had the off-field stuff, I think you give Dak his deal first. And you wait and see with Zeke. Because again, anything can happen within the next few months. And again, you can throw anybody in that backfield. And behind the Dallas offensive line, you're going to get some good rushing numbers out of them. Without a doubt. So, I don't know. This is going to be something we'll have to talk a little bit more about when we talk about the NFC East, I guess.
Yeah, I do want to touch on Melvin Gordon real quick because he's sitting out. He's commanding money compared to like Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. And it kind of surprised me. He's 26 now, so I mean, we're kind of at that wild card stage with him. And he's only posted 1,000-yard season. Now, technically, yeah, 2016 he was 3 yards away from 1,000, so I mean, you could round up, but is he really on the level of Gurley and DJ and Le'Veon? I don't know.
I think he's on the next tier.
Yeah, he's definitely the second tier, but I don't know. I don't think a second tier guy can command first tier money.
I definitely think Zeke might be in that first tier.
Oh, absolutely. I think the first tier is Zeke, DJ, Le'Veon, Gurley, maybe McCaffrey, depending on how he goes. Well, even then, maybe not because he's more of a pass catcher.
Yeah, I would put McCaffrey maybe in that second tier.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Gordon is on the threshold of getting into that first tier. We'll have to see after this year. But, yeah, that's crazy to me. I definitely think he deserves to get paid. Maybe not as much as those guys. So, that's going to be a little bit something more, I guess, when we'll talk about the AFC West with Melvin Gordon and his Chargers, and with Zeke and his Cowboys in the NFC East. So speaking of previews, now it's time to roll into another week of our NFL previews, where we're talking about the NFC North, and we got to talk about the Vikings, the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions. Now, Jace said last week that take the over on the amount of games that the Bears win. Take that, put your rent money, put whatever money you have at all on them. And so I guess let's just start with the Bears, since he mentioned that last week. Let's talk about the Bears. So the Bears, I mean, who could have seen this last year, Peter? 12-4. It was just crazy. And you had first-year coach Matt Nagy there. You didn't really know what you were getting still with Mitch Trubisky. You still don't. But yeah, so let's talk about the Bears. And of course, I mean, their season ended against the Eagles, and of course, shout out to Cody Parkey for all that stuff.
You know, I rewatched that kick recently, and someone pointed out that the way he hit the goalpost spelled L, because he hit the left upright, and then it went to the bottom.
Oh,
that's good. That's good. Whoever said that, good on you. That was hilarious.
Well, that's fitting. Now, I can't think of anything fitting for Cody Parkey than that.
Yeah, I think when you start with the Bears, if anything, it's going to be defense, because that's what really got them there last year.
Oh, yeah, the defense. You trade for Khalil Mack. That works out for you. He has 12.5 sacks in 14 games.
Yeah. Now, the only worry is their new coordinator is Chuck Pagano.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Well, I know he was with the Ravens and he coached defense for a while. I guess that'd be a thing for Matt to talk about, but I don't know. I think this might be a good spot for him. He's definitely got the talent on defense to work with something. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I'm intrigued by it. I think, he's not head coach anymore. He's back in his old setting. So maybe he can work his magic there on defense and make something happen and get another good year out of them.
As long as he's not deciding special teams trickery, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, don't let him see the special teams playbook, everybody.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, they did lose Jordan Howard. He's in Philly right now.
Yes. And
so Cohen's pretty much the man. And they also drafted David Montgomery, right?
Yeah, David Montgomery from Iowa State. He fits more of what Nagy likes to do. The reason why they traded Howard is that he wasn't really a fit in Matt Nagy's scheme. Of course, Nagy came from the Kansas City system the year before. And Montgomery, he can run. He can catch out of the backfield. He caught 58 passes for Iowa State over the last 2 seasons. And so he's able to do that. He's also able to run in between the tackles. And you mentioned Tariq Cohen. Just an electrifying player. And so you have those two as your 2 running backs. And then I guess let's stay on offense here, and we'll switch gears back to defense. And the big question here is, so they also didn't add Mike Davis to the backfield. Add Ted Larson to the offensive line. You had basically 2 kickers. I'm looking at Walter Football, but they cut Chris Blewett, which that would have been perfect for the Bears. But you bring in Eddie Pinheiro to be your kicker. You have all this on offense. The big question here is Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, that's what I really want to talk about because I still don't know what type of quarterback he's going to turn into.
Nobody's sure.
Because the thing is, he has the wide receiver weapons to help him with anything. I mean, Allen Robinson's going to be the guy who can go far with him, but we haven't seen Trubisky really utilize that yet. And Allen Robinson's numbers really show that, especially if you have him in fantasy football. I mean, he was just
it took a dip.
Yeah, super dip. And, you could be like, well, he was coming off an injury, yada, yada. Sure. But again, he was no longer, he had everything going with him. He had a quarterback that wasn't Blake Bortles.
That'll make a difference.
I mean, outside of that, his receiver core, I don't think he knows what he really wants to be just yet. But he has a weapon for any type of thing he turns into. So
yeah,
this is gonna be maybe a hot seat year for him, I would say.
Yeah, and a lot of things hinge on him. We know what the defense is gonna bring. We'll go back to them in a second, but yeah, there's so many questions there. I mean, they did get a 12-4, so something did happen. He wasn't consistent last year, but he did show some improvement. And he did have some pretty big games for him. But that's the big thing here, going into year 3, going into year 2 with Matt Nagy's system. If you're Matt Nagy, if you're the Chicago Bears, I think what you're hoping for is in year 2 in this system, you understand it completely. You know it inside and out, backwards and forwards, and you could go off this year and just go and just do whatever you can. And I think that's a really big thing. If you know the playbook, I think that's going to really help you. If you're a year 2 in the system, in which Matt Nagy, he was a good offensive coordinator in Kansas City. And there's a reason why the Bears picked him to be the head coach. And you saw some elements of the Kansas City offense. So I think if you're the Bears, you got to hope that year 2 in this system, you hope Mitch Trubisky just takes off. And you mentioned the offense, you got Robinson, you got Taylor Gabriel, Anthony Miller. You're still hoping Trey Burton, that he proves more of him being worthy of that $32 million deal that they gave him last year.
Yeah, because I was really big on him last year, and he just didn't do jack.
No, not at all. And, I know I had him too, and he didn't do anything for me. But you're hoping for that. You're also hoping for the offensive line to stick together. They did pay Bobby Massey around $31 million, which that might be an overpay. But look, hey, when you're talking about a cohesive offensive line that has chemistry and knows how each other works, that's not an overpay.
All the weapons you just listed, in the backfield, you're going to have Cohen, Montgomery, you have Robinson, Gabriel, and Miller. Trubisky has everything to work with, and if you could give an offensive line and give him more time, maybe, which isn't really good for quarterbacks. You kind of want your quarterback to be very, knowledgeable and be, go.
Yeah.
But hey, he's still not there yet. He was a project from the beginning. We all knew that.
Yes, we all knew that.
And the fact that 2 years in, he's showing signs of progression is good. But this is a team that has high expectations. I don't think he's all there just yet. The defense is going to help him a lot, and he's got the weapons. So it's going to be a wild card year for the Bears. Not, in terms of where they finish. They'll probably win the division more likely than not. But I think what happens come playoff time, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And so going back to the defense, of course, you got Khalil Mack there. Leonard Floyd, you're hoping to get something out of him. And I guess this is his 5th year with them. So they have the option to get rid of him after this year. So you got to hope that he can prove something this year. But even if he does, it could just be because he's in a contract year. So, But you do have Akeem Hicks, really great last year, one of the top 3-4 defensive ends. You have him. You drafted Roquan Smith last year. Really great pickup. Love him. And you bring in you do lose a couple pieces on defense. Bryce Callahan, Adrian Amos, who went to the Packers, which we'll talk about there in a little. But you bring in Buster Skirine. You bring him in there. You have Kyle Fuller, Prince Amukamara, Eddie Jackson. But this Bears defense, it's really good, Peter.
Oh yeah, it's the best in the league for sure, hands down.
Yeah, and
just hope they don't end up like the Jaguars last year when they had the easily the best, and then it just turned into a absolute dumpster fire.
Well, Peter, I wish a dumpster fire on Jacksonville any time of the day. I don't wish this on the Chicago Bears. I do wish a dumpster fire on their kickers, though. That's hilarious.
If that season ends in a playoff game on a missed field goal again, I think that city just destroys the team.
Oh man,
they're gonna rip off all the renovations they made to Soldier Field and just turn it back into old Soldier Field.
Well, they'll bring in Jay Cutler back for that.
Now you're talking.
There we go. Get more disaster in there, Peter. You're not
run the Wildcat with Jay Cutler.
You're not thinking stupid enough, Peter. So yeah, there's the Chicago Bears, and I guess we'll keep on going in alphabetical order. Let's go to Detroit. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions here. I'm going to pull up something about them because I got something pulled up on every team except the Detroit Lions because of course, and because who knows with this team? You got your year 2 and Matt Patricia. Your year 2 with that. You know, Peter, I saw something crazy. Golden Tate, who's played in Detroit the last few years. He also played in Seattle. He said Matthew Stafford is better than Russell Wilson. I think he's been with the Giants a little bit too long, Peter.
Yeah, boy, is there some recreational drug I'm not aware of that's legal in that state?
I mean, hey, it's New York.
Fair enough.
I mean, anything's possible, but
I will say, coming into the season, Matt Patricia, boy, he's got a lot to attend to because 2016, 2017 they were 9-7, and he comes in and they're immediately 6-10.
Yeah.
But Peter, they beat the Patriots.
Who cares?
Yeah, guess where the Patriots finished?
Yeah, in the Super Bowl.
I will say I'm gonna start it on offense with them because that's where I'm usually more interested in. Defense with Detroit, I just kind of think is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
I still think Stafford's fine. He's not good enough to win big stuff, but he'll get you close there. Now, everything around him, though, I like. I love Kerryon Johnson. I think he's going to have an excellent year. Kenny Galloway, I have a lot of faith in. And T.J. Hawkinson, they spent a lot of him on the draft.
Oh, man. I love him.
He could be a new Gronk in Detroit, which would be fun.
I love Hawkinson. One of my favorite players out of the draft.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot to work with on offense for him in all three of those capacities. So, very good thing to work with. Defense, I'll let you take over because, to be honest, every year with them, I'm just like, they exist, I think.
Well, Peter, they do exist. They added Trey Flowers. Speaking of the Patriots, another former Patriot has left to join a former Patriot coach. Mm-hmm. So he signed a big deal with Detroit there. And they did bring in one of the Clemson defensive linemen, Peter, Austin Bryant.
Okay, that's fine.
Probably the lesser known out of all of them, but still a pretty good piece to add in. You lose Ziggy Ansah, who you've had for years, and so you're trying to make do with what you have. Of course, you got your mainstays: Damon Harrison, Deshaun Hand, Ashawn Robinson. You got those defensive tackles there. Hopefully, something good out of them. Yeah, the defense, I mean, it's a thing. Linebackers, I'm trying to remember who they have at linebackers. I know they got Gerard Davis, who they're really high on. And, man, I can't really tell you a whole lot about the Lions because there's not a whole lot out there on them.
They signed Danny Amendola.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I just saw that. What is with the Lions and the Titans all of a sudden trying to be the Patriots?
Well, Peter, I'll tell you what, we've had far more success than the Lions have had with it so far. We really have. I'll get into more about that when we talk about the AFC South, which is, I think. Hold on, let me pull it up. Oh yeah. I forgot they got Amani Oriya out of Penn State. I forgot that was a good steal for them. Okay.
So he's a good quarterback, so that's good for them on defense.
Yeah, I just found out. We're talking about the AFC South next week, so it's only going to be a week from now till you guys find out what I think about the New England Titans.
Hey.
Got to make that joke in there somewhere. You also got to make the joke that this is the New England Lions, basically. But, yeah, the Lions, I mean, of course, you got Darius Slay back there. Mainstay at cornerback, really good corner right there. So, yeah, I mean, not really a whole much you can say on the Lions. I'd say they're not an interesting team. They really aren't. I'm sorry, Lions fans. No, take that back.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize. They're used to it. They were 0-16 before it was cool.
Oh, shout out to Cleveland.
The Lions wish they were Cleveland right now.
Oh, man. Getting Odell. Yeah.
Do you feel like the Lions are cheat? I bet the Lions feel like they're cheated because when they went 0-16, it took forever to get back to like any sort of like respectability. The Browns, 2 years after 0-16, they're like playoff contenders.
Yeah, they must be feeling some type of way about that. They have to be.
Do you remember those parody Cleveland tourist videos? I think the second one ended "We're not Detroit," and that's really starting to look exactly like what's going on here. Detroit is, I guess, officially the worst city in America.
Shout out to the Detroit Pistons too.
You know what they need? They need Ron Artest in some capacity on this team.
Oh yeah, Peter, I think you need to get him fighting with the fans. Listen, the NBA, make it fan friendly. Get the fans involved. Make it an interactive experience.
About to say though, I don't care who you are. If you got a 6'7" lineman coming up to beat you up, you're dead.
Yeah, like you're not surviving that.
All right, so that's pretty much where every Detroit talk ends.
Moving on to the Green Bay Packers, and this might be the most interesting team out of the division to talk about.
For the wrong reasons.
Yeah, for the wrong reasons, but nonetheless, they're reasons. So, Mike McCarthy isn't there. You bring in former Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur. The offense in Tennessee, I know Matt talked about this a lot last year, and I agree with him. The offense, there really wasn't any improvement there. And so you're wondering what you get out of him and Aaron Rodgers and how that relationship is going to work. And I just don't know. And Aaron Rodgers, he's a mystery case. Who knows what's up with him?
He went from like the most likable guy in the NFL to just being like the biggest diva overnight, getting his coach fired. And what I think did it was he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like he has nothing really to prove anymore, I guess.
I guess not. And they did, so some of the losses, they did lose Randall Cobb, Howard Wilkerson, Nick Perry. They did lose Clay Matthews, which that's going to be weird to see on that defense, to not see that long hair flying around. You lost Jake Ryan, Rashad Breeland, Kentrell Bryce. But they did have a very good draft and very good offseason. So you add Billy Turner to the offensive line, and you add to that defense Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith to add to the edge rushers for the Packers. He also had Adrian Amos over from the Bears. And the draft, I kind of like what they did. They added Rashawn Gary out of Michigan. They added Darnell Savage. That's a great name for a safety. They had another offensive lineman, Elgin Jenkins, and tight end Jay Sternberg, who I really like. I think he's underrated. He had a really good year at Texas A&M under Jimbo. I think Packers got a really good tight end there. But, yeah, the whole thing hinges on there is the relationship now between LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know what to make of it. It's just, we'll see how this plays out during the season. But I'll tell you what, LaFleur better making a pressure on Aaron Rodgers right away. Because Aaron isn't playing.
Yeah. We should say Aaron